Good morning. I'm Alex Cooke, co-founder and CEO of Renegade Pictures. This festival is very close to my heart. Some 20 plus years ago, I was the festival's film programmer, a job I absolutely cherished. This year, I'm very honoured and delighted to return to the festival as chair of the trustees. Before we start the sessions today, I wanted to thank festival director Cynthia Gill and the whole festival team who've worked tirelessly and against the odds through this pandemic to still bring you the event this year. I also want to thank Nigel Fisher for producing all the sessions. While we can't all be physically together, the spirit and the community of the festival has continued in debates, pitches, screenings, and even some social events, albeit online. The last few months have been shocking and very unsettling. We're living through a terrible pandemic and many have suffered enormous losses. The murder of George Floyd at the hands of the Minnesota police and the deaths of so many Black people who've died in similar circumstances, not just in the US, but here too, has given pressing urgency for the need to eradicate structural and institutional racism. And now we're heading into an uncertain and worrying economic crisis. So where does this leave us as documentary filmmakers? Where should we be pointing our cameras? What do we want to say? How do we affect change? How do we nurture talent? And how do we tackle structural racism head on? How do we ensure unheard voices are heard? Are only privileged filmmakers going to make films this year? How do we reach big audiences, and what is the role of the broadcasters in these times? We're delighted to have an esteemed panel of factual commissioners with us today from the major British broadcasters who've agreed to share with us not only their thoughts on how they and their channels are responding to the crisis and how the pandemic has shaped their thinking, but also their views on what they're excited about and where the opportunities lie for filmmakers and indies as we move ahead. So I'd like to ask our panel to join us now. If you could all turn your cameras on, please. We have with us Guy Davies, commissioning editor of Factual at Channel 5, Clare Sillery, head of documentary commissioning for the BBC, Danny Horan, head of Factual at Channel 4, and Satmohan Panesar from commissioning editor, Factual Entertainment, ITV. Thank you all very much for joining us today. Each panelist will take it in turns to talk us through their output and also treat us to some new exclusive clips from upcoming shows. And then we will also take questions from the audience. There's a Q&A box on your Zoom. If you want to write in questions, we'll do our best to get to them and answer them. So first up, I'm going to invite Guy from Channel 5.
Good morning.
Good morning. Guy, tell us a bit about how the pandemic has affected Channel 5.
Well, I mean, it was a massive change back in March. And I think that we felt that we had to be, I think everybody felt the same in those first few weeks, was just to try and find how we were going to get through this, how we were going to work from home. I have to thank our producers, actually, who just were incredible at making things happen. And I think that we really appreciated that. But the first thing I think we did was just to sort of try and work out where we were in those first few weeks. I think we had to look at what production basically stopped in Factual. We're a factual channel, so we're driven by that. But then, of course, we don't have the problems that having lots and lots of drama has also meant, or entertainment. So I think at the beginning, we did a kind of survey of production. We did halt some shows, but we tried to keep everything going as much as we could. We were trying to see what could be shot. I suppose that, that was the first thing, is what can we carry on doing? I think the second phase was probably to think, how are we going to make this work in terms of the schedule? When you're looking at a drop in advertising revenue, we're a commercial broadcaster, so suddenly the economic factors would kick in. which meant that we had to look at what we could show, whether we had expensive shows that probably needed to be put on the shelf for a bit. I'm sure that Danny had similar conversations and thoughts and challenges. It was a case of trying to work out, what we could do and how we could do commissioning. And I think the first thing was to sort of think, what have we got? What can we reversion? What can we redo? That interest has prompted us to think about our utility programming. How adaptable can it be? What different shapes can it work in? So I think we did that. We did auditions, and I think we also looked at what the repeat strategy might be. I think we then, when the possibility of production emerged again, I think we had to look at it very carefully and think safety first, really, but to get things up and quickly and as quickly as possible. And I think once the industry-wide and government regulation or guidance had been agreed, at least we just went for it and tried to get as much as we could possibly get into production. One of the worries, of course, is how long that production window will be, in fact, if there's a second spike, if there are regional or whatever lockdowns. I mean, one looks at, you look at your series and you think, I'm shooting a series in Barnsley at the moment. Then when you look at the list of the top 10 places where there are problems with the virus, you think, are we going to be able to continue to shoot that? So there's a lot of conversations going on in quite detail about productions that are up and running. But we have managed to get most of our slate back up and running. So we are in production, we are commissioning, we are looking at next year. So it's been hard. It's been probably as hard as it's been for indies, who I say I really feel for, because running small myself, I know how difficult it can be. So I think that we're trying to balance all those things together at this stage, I think, and just come through with the best programming. I think that, and we can probably talk about this later, but I think there have been some really interesting things that have come out of it. One is about techniques and the way that programs have been made. I think the use of phones. I mean, I did have a clip, but I'm not going to show it, but we haven't got time. There's been some amazing things with, interview-driven programs with Samsung phones. I mean, particularly our Royal Docs, for example, have been doing amazingly well. With ITN using the Samsung phone directly loading up to the cloud and into the edit. And those shows, I think we all felt, early on, that the spectre of Skype-driven programming and what that would mean later in the year when on to the screen was a worry. But I think that we're really inventive in ways of making films, and we've done a big piece on Nuremberg trials, which is all in audio. The interviews are not seen, and that's actually creatively been a really interesting experience. Denise Commission, I think, has found it a really interesting experience. So I think there are ways of dealing with it and pushing forward and getting our slate together. So I think, having sort of gone through the pain a bit, and pretty sort of optimistic that we are getting programming, we are now shooting, we are out there making documentaries and documentary series, and I think that's really important. We just carry on, and we're open for business. So it's that's the way we do it. Whilst
you don't have a crystal ball, what are the conversations you're having about what the audience tonally would like?
That's the really difficult question, isn't it? Because you sort of think, where are we heading? And I think that we decided quite early on, and it was interesting, it was a different strategy to Channel 4. We decided early on not to really do lots and lots of COVID-related programming. We felt that actually our audience, which I guess is similar in a way to Sat's audience, wanted to have sort of familiarity rather than to go in big on the coronavirus story. We see people doing that, and so we go the other way, I think for us was the right thing. In terms of, so then it sort of begs the question, where are we going to be? And I think that is the big question. In general, people, we've tried a couple of these out, things like The Country Life at Half the Price that Emma did, which are very, very well. So there is a feeling of wanting to be warm-hearted, optimistic, rather than kind of dwelling on what we've been through. But I think that, you know, across the board, we are looking for the same range of broad appeal programming that we always have. But I think that we've been careful to ensure that stuff that we can do, we can use. It's really important to us to have repeatability, which is to make sure, especially broadcasters, are finding that having a content that you can use and reuse in these kind of situations, maybe used in different ways, reworked a little, is really important. So I think that's been important to us to think about that, and not when, you know, your advertising revenue is what, 45% down, investing in lots of programming that you can only play once. So I think all of those, but then, you know, you've got to balance that against doing a film you really want to do that might not be your Bangs ratings winner, but you really want to do it because you think it's a great story and it's, in terms of reputation, something you want to do. So I think it's balancing all of those things together, which I think we can do. We're a small team. We're very agile. We have commissioned a lot over the last 3 months. And I think it's just a case of sort of trying to make the schedule work over the next 6 months to see where we are. But my main thing is for us to preserve the tone of the channel. I mean, interestingly, we've had a lot of big hits during the last 3 months. We've launched a number of series like, you know, Police Arab GT, Inside the Force, A&E After Dark, quite a lot of those sort of genre pieces, which have done incredibly well for us, and they'll all return. So actually, we've been. I know there's a little bit of grade inflation going on in the figures probably early on when somebody watching, but I think that has buoyed us up. So we know that we've got those genre pieces coming back. We can then around a little bit. They're almost like, you want to get your staples in. You want to recommission. You want to get Paddington Station up and filming as soon as you reasonably can. Then at least you've got building blocks, and you can think, okay, so where can we go around this? So that's the kind of, we just want to preserve the tone of the panel, which is succeeding.
So you brought some clips today of some work. Would you like to tell us why you've chosen these clips, and then?
Yeah, I mean, 2 clips. First one is a film that we've announced today, which is called The Frontline Doctor's War. And I think I just wanted to show a clip from this, partly because I think it looks pretty extraordinary. It was commissioned a few months ago, and Nat Leppett has made it. And I think it's sort of saying that whilst we're all in these difficult times, and particularly for broadcasters and producers, scheduling, the rest of it, there are still great stories. And I think the other thing that Channel 5 has done over the last few years has been to do significant and important one-off 90-minute feature-length films, whether that's The Abused and those kind of films that have done incredibly well for us and have enhanced our reputation as a documentary channel. It's important that we continue to do those, and this is the one that we're doing at the moment. It's Saturday. It's at, I think, the world's biggest refugee camp, and it's a story of a British team on the Médecins Sans Frontières who've been to help, and so I think it's a story that's important. It's a story, I think, that really speaks to views on an emotional level. And it's showing, I think, something of the ambition of what we like to do as part of our documentary output.
The other thing, obviously, Channel 5 announced this week, and there's some schemes you've been working with BAME Indies, and you brought another clip if you want to talk to us a bit about that.
I mean, I can tell you about that. The clip doesn't really relate to that. It predates it quite a bit. But last year, I mean, what it isn't a scheme. This is the way the thing. I think there's often preconceptions about these things. Last year, I think it was November, we teamed up with Simone at TV Collective to have a business initiative, because we're a very commercial channel, and we need mainstream programming, and we were keen to build relationships with some BAME-led companies. We already work with you, Ed Dehaney or Paul Blake or others, but wanted to actually devise a sort of initiative which would build those companies, help try to build those companies as suppliers to the channel and to all of the other channels, and that with very much an idea of mainstream programming, to not feel that those companies felt that they were put in any way a sort of particular box to making particular programs. So we worked with, I think, 9 companies in the end. We've commissioned them all, apart from one who we're still developing an interesting idea with. And we announced those commissions last week. And I think it's just important that that initiative works on that level. And so it's about building companies. It's about having a proper business relationship and making, I mean, when you look at, for example, Paul Stead's company, Daisy Beck, which is now a significant player in Leeds, probably employing 100 people like that. That all came from the Yorkshire Vet, which was one series 5 years ago, in series 11. And there's no reason that any company that we deal with shouldn't be able to have that kind of relationship with us, with GPs and Knickerbocker Glory and the rest of it. You know, we are looking to build those sort of relationships. So that's what the initiative was about. And I think that we're not interested in just manifestos or saying what we intend to do. We wanted to do something particular. And then, so now we've got this roster of companies in addition to the other BAME-led companies we're working with, which we want to build on. And we'll see what the programs are like. Some of them are already coming in and they're very good, interesting. That's the reason we did it, and I think it's an important thing for us to do. It's absolutely tailored to our audience, absolutely tailored to making those companies, building those companies, which I think is really important. So it's a commercial scheme. The other clip, so just talk quickly about the other clip. I know you're out, time is not with us. The other clip is interesting because it was commissioned some time ago. We commissioned this series, Thousand Slavery, from David Olsoga and Mike Smith, probably at the end of last year again, or even before. And it's beginning to pull together all sorts of problems with this sort of series, especially at the moment, from filming in Brazil, Argentina, where, you know, enslaved people, for example, gave us the story of the tango. It's a really interesting idea. It's a very different take, I think, and it's evolved really as the debate has evolved. And I think we're quite lucky in a way to be in the position we are with the whole debate on diversity, because it's shaping the way that this program begins to work as well, which I think is really interesting. And it could have been a very straightforward history series about 1,000 years, but we've done something, I hope, rather different with people.
Guy, we're going to move on over to Clare Sillery at the BBC. So Clare, tell us a bit about how this whole period has affected you and how you have been responding to it.
I think it's hard to even begin to talk about this without sort of acknowledging the impact that this has had on the freelance community. You know, it's been an incredibly difficult time for the freelance community and for indies. You know, and I think with recent events, you know, around the murder of George Floyd, you know, and Black Lives Matter movement, the sort of the inequality in our industry, we just can't ignore it, and we have to bring change now. I just have to start by saying that. In terms of how we responded to the crisis, I think the BBC had a very particular role as a public service broadcaster. And I think what happened is the walls, that initial scramble about, you know, what can we put on air? How can we serve the audience? meant that the sort of normal walls that there would be in Factual between the different genres just collapsed. And so it becomes a great big unscripted effort with daytime and Factual together and entertainment together. And it was about identifying what we could get on air and how it might work. I think it's really interesting seeing things like, you know, production teams pulling off something like Spring Watch, which for me actually is sort of almost better. I don't know if any of you watch Spring Watch do this, but those things like Spring Watch or Country File or Songs of Praise, they were really, really important to deliver, and Indies worked really hard to do that. That was the sort of first phase. And then the next phase was about, well, what can we commission? What can we make now? And I think specifically to talk about documentary, I think we felt that in terms of covering COVID, that there was so much news and current affairs in this space, and that documentary brings, yes, it holds up a mirror, but it also brings perspective. And it was quite hard to get perspective outside the news and current affairs things. So we commissioned Hospital, which is a known brand to the audience. I would have loved to have shown you a clip, but we didn't have time for everything. It's an amazing, amazing two-parter from Liberal One. And that was made during the pandemic. So the crews were filming in the Royal Free Hospital. The thing I think was sort of remarkable about it as a piece of filmmaking was I watched all of the news, and I'd seen every briefing, I'd read a lot of articles, but it wasn't until I watched both of those episodes that I think I began to really understand something about what was going on in hospitals, because the team were able to capture doctors learning about the disease as they went along. So there was sort of an amazing scene in it where they discover that COVID is attacking the vocal cords of one of the patients, and the tube that she's been intubated with is too thick a gauge, and from that moment on, all the doctors will use a thinner gauge tube. It's just remarkable to have that insight. So, but I think the thinking was that for the audience, that being within the Hospital brand felt like it's less frightening. It's more, you sort of know what Hospital is and what Hospital is going to do. So although slightly different to the normal Hospital, I think it was better within that brand. So some of the stuff we've commissioned around COVID will be, you know, I think we announced something today, which is going to be Britain v Corona, which is sort of retrospective, which will look back, an analysis of the last 12 months and how we've dealt with that. So in terms of docs commissioning, that's what we were doing. In terms of how we've been working, not just with what we're commissioning, but also with indies and with freelancers, we're taking quite a sort of company-centric point of view, because so many companies have got shows which are delayed. So far in docs, we haven't decommissioned anything, which is great, I hope. That things we're trying to work specifically with companies to either look at their at how the cash flow works on productions, looking at delays in delivery, but it's all happening in a very sort of bespoke way. And then the small indie fund, we've put money into that, so that has doubled the funding to that to 2 million. You know, of the indies in that fund, I think this is right, that 2/3 of them are out of London, small indies, and 1/4 of them are diverse-led indies.
So the fund for developing projects, or how?
Yeah, well, there are two sort of tiers within it. So some are having structural support, and others it's targeted development support. And there's quite a few things already in the pipeline that start, you know, already going through the commissioning process, that it's starting to really bear fruit. And then also with BBC Three, we've had, Fiona has been leading sort of creative partnerships, which work with, where the first one she did was with BBC Northern Ireland and Screen Northern Ireland. And that was where a specific brief was given for fact-ent shows for BBC Three. 2 pilots were commissioned and are being made, and then as a result of that, a series will be commissioned. And that sort of partnership is being rolled out across the nations and regions. So there's another one underway for docs in the north of England. There's one in Scotland, and one under discussion in Wales. Is still working out which genre to do it in. So things like that are happening. And obviously development has been supercharged. So yeah, and we're up for funded developments. I don't think we want to be wasting people's time. It's not a sort of oh, here's some development money to keep you afloat. It's, let's talk about ideas that we really think have got a shot of being commissioned, and we're putting development money into those.
Great. And then tonally, so going forward and thinking about what you want to be commissioning, where do you feel you're heading with the audience? What are you looking for?
Well, the change that's happened for us in thinking, I think one of the things that you'll really see, I'm sure everyone has noticed this, I'd describe it tactfully as fluidity amongst the channels, because content just had to move. And so you'll see that shows moved from daytime, like Repair Shop, which was a daytime show, moved on to BBC One, heart of BBC One schedule, and did amazing numbers. Something like Sewing Bee moves on to BBC One, and again performs incredibly well. Salisbury Poisonings was commissioned for BBC Two as a drama, does 10 million on BBC One. We've got shows moving from BBC Four onto BBC Two. So I don't know if you remember the Ripper Files that Lisa Williams made on BBC Four. Well, the next generation of that is the Shipman Files. That's moving on to BBC Two. So things are moving, and that combined with Iplayer has been doing sort of unbelievable numbers. And I can't remember what the technical term for new joiners to Iplayer is. There's some term for it, but Iplayer virgins, for want of a better expression. And more and more people have been coming to Iplayer for the first time. So when you put those two things together, I would say that when you're pitching to us at the moment, don't think, when it comes to BBC One and BBC Two, don't think so much about which channel, and think more about how would this perform on Iplayer. So when that comes to series, there are sort of categories that would fall, categories of shows that have performed well on Iplayer. So the first one would be,
sorry.
I'm going to show you a clip at the end of this. So, but it's just the first one would be the brands, big access brands like Ambulance. Those perform well on Iplayer because the audience recognise them. The second would be pleasure and the promise of escape. Spun Gold did an amazing job of continuing to deliver Inside Monaco during the pandemic, and that again did amazing numbers on BBC Two, and stayed up on Iplayer it was in the top 10 of Iplayer, I think, for a month after the first TX. So pleasure works. The other thing is also there are shows which are specially built for Iplayer. So a show like Murder 24/7 last year was specifically designed with narrative, with a box set narrative in mind from the outset. That was part of the commissioning spec of it. We are interested in those type of shows. And then the other thing I'd say is that this applies across the board. So it applies in history, it applies in science, it applies in docs, is that things which have a real sense of scale and ambition. So a show like The Planets was one of the top rating shows on Iplayer last year on science. We've got a thing coming up on history about the Murdochs, the Murdoch dynasty, that has that feel. So it's not about the number of eps, it's about the scale, which brings me to, I'm sorry, this is a very long-winded way of getting to, but we've got a clip I really want to share with you, which is Once Upon a Time in Iraq, which is a series which is going out very soon. You might have seen the trails on BBC Two. And this is a series from James Blumell. The Iraq War is the defining conflict of our times. This series traces the war from the invasion in 2003 to the 17 years of chaos that followed it. And the politicians and the generals have had their say. This series is the perspective. James brings the perspective of civilians, people on the ground, journalists who were there, and soldiers from both sides of the conflict. So it's got quite a remarkable tone. Just before I show you the clip, I'll just give you a tiny bit of background. James is just an amazing interviewer, and he forms I think over quite a long period of time, it has to be said, days-long interviews, a really incredibly intimate relationship. There's just something about the tone that's very special in his interviews. And the person you're going to meet in this clip is called Walid. And Walid he was living in Baghdad in 2003. And you meet him throughout the series. It's a 5-part series. When you first meet Walid, he is a sort of heavy metal loving, America loving. He loves everything to do with America, and he's quite excited about the invasion. And then he gets a job as an interpreter, working for the US military. And so he has a ringside seat on what happens to his country. And so this clip that you're about to see is Walid talking about, this is in 2003 when he is in Baghdad at the time of the invasion. Sorry, I just say that series with real scale like that and ambition, we will always be looking for. And what I'd say, there's a real opportunity at the moment. I don't think there's ever been a greater appetite for documentary, than there is right now, documentary storytelling across the board. And I think that applies across the slates. So that series could have been commissioned on history. I know that science and history are also looking for these sort of series. And I just say that there are real opportunities there for documentary filmmakers with their expertise across the board.
So you brought another clip which is more in the kind of box set tradition. And
yeah, just quickly, the other thing to just say is that there are huge opportunities at the moment on BBC Three. So BBC Three, the other thing that has changed is that BBC Three is going to be, I think it's virtually doubling its funding, taking it much closer to where it would have been in, say, 2014. And the opportunities on BBC Three are in the fact-dent space. So we make glow up on docs, which is about so much more than makeup to anyone who ever watches it. It's, anyway, I won't eulogize about it, but we would love another big fact-dent series. We also have, we're looking for premium doc series on BBC Three, and that means box sets inevitably because they have to sit on Iplayer. And with box sets on Three, they all need an incredibly compelling narrative, lots of twists and turns, minimum of 4 episodes. But the thing that's brilliant on Three about that is that that doesn't mean that they have to be 60 minutes long, those episodes. They can be whatever length they need to be to serve the story, which I think is really exciting. So last year we did Home Time as one of those, Panesar's Home Time. And I think we've announced today that we're going to, Mobeen's company actually are making Home Time 2 with a new talent on it. And it's going to be Amber Hack is going to investigate. She's going back to her hometown of Cheadle to look at the case of Yusuf Maki, who was killed by 2 of his classmates. She's going back to, she grew up in Cheadle. And so that's one sort. And I wanted to show, one type is a sort of, it's a podcasty feel as a box set. We don't know how that story will unfold when we commission it, but we'll also do more past tense type box sets, past tense storytelling. And I wanted to show you a taster actually from something which has been commissioned in that box set space. A little bit of context. I'm sorry, everything needs a little bit of context. This is the story of Michaela McCollum. In 2013, she was arrested at Lima airport with 1.5 kilograms of cocaine in her suitcase, she and an accomplice. And she was sentenced to 7 years in Ancon 2, which is a pretty scary prison in Peru. And this is her story. She is going to narrate this story.
Great clip.
So you can see that promised lots of twists and turns, and yeah. Michaela is a really fascinating character, right in the BBC Three demographic.
So very briefly before we move on, Storyville, obviously, you know, Sheffield, lots of international filmmakers and...
Storyville, Mandy would kill me if we did not mention Storyville. It's usually it's 20 to 25 films a year. Mandy is thinking she may do slightly less films next year and put more investment into them. Some films are acquisitions, very few though, most are co-pros. What she's looking for at the moment are big geopolitical stories. I don't know if you saw the Chechnya film about the gay purge, which was remarkable. You know, it's an incredibly important film, really big impact, important story. She's looking for those type of films. She will do history docs, but again, those history docs have to really have a resonance for now. So she did a film called United Skates. I don't know if anyone saw that. It's a great film, which was about actually a little known phenomenon of black roller skating in America, but which had an impact on the music and fashion scene. And but what it was also really about was race and racial discrimination. So that's what she is absolutely, her prize is unfolding narrative. But even with those really big stories, with big themes, it's really essential that things have strong characters at their heart, or she'll pass on them, I think. And she has online submissions is the thing that she really wanted me to emphasize. And that there's the run is just coming to an end now. They're all going to be up on Iplayer, and some of the more recent Storyvilles are going to be up there on Iplayer too. So there's going to be a sort of Storyville fest coming very soon.
Great, thank you, Claire. Thanks very much. Moving over to Danny and Channel 4. So obviously, again, hi Danny, different channel, different feel, different issues going on.
Less money. Should we talk about that?
Yeah, tell us what's been going on for you at Channel 4.
Well, it's been, it's been a really, I mean, there's no getting around. It's been a difficult time. I mean, it's been for many reasons. It's well known we've got less money because we've been probably, obviously much more so than the BBC, been affected because we are solely reliant on advertising. So that market's been massively hit. So we've got a lot less money this year and less next year. But of course we've tried to, and that of course is a killer when, we are a broadcaster like most people on here. You're made up of like the indie community. So we're slightly, that's painful all round when we've had to, unfortunately, we have had to cancel some shows because we've just been left with quite a big hole. So, and then of course we've been trying to commission some stuff in response to COVID as well. So it's been a complicated jigsaw to put together. But I'd say the one good thing is we are, the forecast is looking slightly better than we'd hoped. But it's very dependent on what happens in the world, right? If we go into a second spike and we go into lockdown again, that makes it more complicated because it's so reliant on the advertising. But we've tried to respond in a way that is, how do we capture what's going on in the world right now? How do we make some longer term films, of which we've got a couple coming down the line, and then also keep the sort of audience entertained, and then also we're trying to put some of our big productions like A&E, for example, my bit of the forest, A&E and First Dates, we're trying to get them back up and running. So actually we can get freelancers back into work again and companies up and running again. So, but it's bloody complicated, I have to say. I mean, it's more complicated than I thought it would be to get things up and running again. But anyway, it's a good challenge.
And what do you feel, in terms of sort of things coming down the line and where you're looking, what do you feel Channel 4, what's the space for Channel 4 and for people?
Well, I think our response is like, we're going to have a bit less money next year. That is true. So what I'm trying to do is preserve 9 PM as much as possible. And continue to fund it around the same tariff that we have been. And then 8 PM, we've never had loads and loads of 8 PM many hours anyway from Factual, but we will probably do higher volume with slightly lower tariff. And then 10 PM will pretty much do the same as well. That's my strategy for Factual of how we're going to pivot. Obviously, I'm trying to get more money in various different ways. So, we've got collaborations with other US networks. We're trying to do different funding models, which, we are in some ways in a good position to be able to do that, being a commercial channel as opposed to the BBC. So we can pivot a bit that way. And I think we have to do that to maintain the amount of hours to get enough freelancers, production companies working, and also maintain quality as well. I mean, I think, you know, we are really up for interesting conversations about how we collaborate in very different ways with other broadcasters and advertisers and brands as well. I mean, we'll be doing more of that for sure. But the balance is always this thing of how do you keep your editorial quality bar high, but also your, you know, sometimes feels like you're sleeping with the enemy by getting into a slightly more commercial world, right? But that is the balance we have to strike, and all my predecessors had to do before me, you know, but it is heightened now because we are trying to pivot to try and get more money into the channel, but maintain that quality bar.
And how do sort of newer filmmakers, how are they coming to the channel? How are you supporting those filmmakers?
So we're continuing with first cut. So, you know, we've got a handful of films we've got for next year, all of which we've decided will be made. We're trying to make outside of London. We're also in the nations and regions for new filmmakers. That's one thing we're trying to do. We've also said we're going to do a minimum of 6 9 p.m. films next year, which will all be either female and or BAME directors, because we just clearly don't have enough, and we've come very short on that, I would say, as a channel in the last few years. So we need to redress the balance on that, and I think it's, you know, I take my hat off to Guy and Channel 5, what they've done, because I think that's their initiative is really clever, and is in some ways it's unbelievably simple, and we should have done it, and we have got something that sort of mirrors something that Channel 5 have done, but which is, you know, clearly a really good thing. But so we've got a bunch of films that we're sort of doing outside of London. That answers that.
Okay. Do you want to show us the clip, and then that might also lead us into some other thoughts?
Sure. I can't remember what clip we did. We said we were starting with the Corona Street one, the Paddy's film.
Yeah, we can do that one first. Sure.
Okay, let's do that one first. Yeah. So we commissioned quite a lot of films in response to coronavirus, and this is one that we did quite early on with Nick Mirsky's company 5 Mile, and Paddy Wivel is directing it, and it's very much a film that is about his neighbourhood and about his relationship to his neighbours and how they responded to lockdown. Yeah. That's Paddy's own street, his own neighbours, and so we sort of pivoted very early on. We commissioned that film because we thought Paddy would, in a way, it was the only way to make a film about it. It's like to make it about your own neighbours, and he lives in a very mixed area, mixed street. So we thought, what are the experiences of people in lockdown, and how does it affect them, and how does it bring them closer together? I mean, I think Paddy now would say he's closer to his neighbours than he ever was before, you know, for obvious reasons. So
strong authored filmmaking, which also segues on to I think you've commissioned as a first cuts, isn't it? Is it commissioned?
You mean this next clip?
Yeah.
So this is not first cut. We commissioned, the director is Ashley Francis Roy. So he won the first cut pitch in Sheffield a year ago, and so we gave him that prize, and he made a film, and then this is actually his second film. So because we've seen something special in him, and so he's made a film about Damilola Taylor, which is called Damilola the Boy Next Door, and he's made it with a new piece of talent called Yinka Bikini. So one of my strategies when I first joined Channel 4 is the BBC have got such a strong, like Clare's department's got such a strong cohort of presenters like Stacey and Louis, And I was always like, God, we really would love that at Channel 4. But I naively thought, well, how hard can it be to find on-screen talent? It actually turns out it's really bloody difficult. And we did a big project where we invested quite a lot of money to find new talent. And we worked with 4 different companies who deliberately went out and found very different types of talent. And they were all from diverse in some way, or underrepresented groups. So one of the groups we worked with was one of the companies we worked with was Acme, and they found somebody called Yinka Bikini, who was a DJ, and she's made this film for us. And actually, she has got a very personal connection to this story with Damalola.
Yeah, very strong.
She's good, isn't she?
Yeah, she's great.
Don't be stealing her, any of you are.
So before we move on from Channel 4, True Stories, I don't know if you've touched on that really. Is that an opportunity for people here?
Sorry, can you repeat that again? You just broke up.
True Stories strand, how is that an opportunity for?
But we're doing, so we are, I mean, it is, we're doing, basically, we're doing True Stories, we're doing some short films, which we've done 100 films that we've done. And they are, many people on here, including myself, by the way, not quite the right demographic to have seen some of those, but because they're short films, they're on different platforms, of which we've got lots of, a lot of viewers of those, of young people. So we're doing more of those actually, and then we're doing, and then we've said we're going to do 6 longer form films next year. I mean, we do want to. I'm very keen to bring back a strand that actually has got a strong identity, that uses has a combination of some younger filmmakers, new filmmakers, and some more established filmmakers as well. So we get people in the pipeline to be making, to be coming through. Particularly, I'm keen on black and brown filmmakers, but also female directors, of which there are just nowhere near as many as there could be. And of course, I have a responsibility of that, and have had in the last 2 years of being in this job, of not commissioning enough of those as well. I totally accept that, but I think we just need to change that. So,
hey Danny, do you want to mention that NFTS scheme that we run together? You know, for female shooters.
Oh yes, yeah. Why don't you talk about it, actually? Yeah, you're right. That's a really good idea.
I know that we work with Channel 4. It's just really put this on people's radar. It's a 2-week course that's been piloted with the NFTS, and it's aimed at producers or APs who sort of haven't picked up a camera or haven't got the confidence to say I shoot. And it's had, I think they've run it twice with pilot schemes, and the results are just amazing. Yeah. So like Tash Gaunt went on that scheme and came out of it essentially into a PD's job, and has just pitched her first film for BBC 3. So she's making a film with Leanne Pinnock for BBC 3. Such is the confidence that she came out of the course with. So it's worth just highlighting that to, if there are any women who want to direct who are watching this, that seems to be a really fantastic game changer. And if you look at the NFTS website, keep an eye on it, because that will come back as soon as possible, as soon as feasible. Or I know that Emma Loach in the docs team is keeping a sort of list of people who are keen to do it. Just sorry to interrupt, but
no, it's a really good point. And you're right, because we've done, I think we've done 2 together. We've done 2 years, haven't we? So we've had 12 now come through Channel 4 on the 12th to the BBC. It is a really good thing, and on my side, Fozia Khan runs it, and Rita Daniels do it as well. So it's worth keeping in touch with them, because we want to. You're right, we want to do that again, and it's a really good scheme.
Great. Okay, so now over to something different. Thanks, Danny. Sat, ITV.
Hi everyone. I mean, you've already had an hour, so I'll try and keep it really brief. I think lots.
You've got your allotted time. You're fine. Don't rush.
Sure. No, don't worry. Honestly, I don't mind. It's been an hour, so I'll be quite quick. Where do you want to start with? The COVID sort of stuff, I suppose, is the big topic of the day. I mean, look, I think there's so much it's been like the most supremely unique situation we've ever found ourselves in, across the board, from our personal lives right the way through to our work, professional lives. I don't think there's anything, I don't know if there ever will be a time like this again. And I suppose from our perspective on ITV, I mean, we scrambled around like everyone else did at the beginning, because we had no idea how long this was going to last, how it was going to really affect both us as a channel and therefore the indies going forward, which, you know, we're still working that out. I mean, the repercussions of this are going to be huge next year, recession, etc., etc. But, you know, we have been quite fortunate in the sense that we have we got up and running quite quickly with our own sort of development funds that we're trying to sort of, you know, while the indies weren't being able to make shows, we were able to fund and accelerate our development. Lots of stuff is now going into pilots now from that initial sort of fund that was given out. And we are, it feels like we're sort of heading towards now back to business as usual. You know, we've not decommissioned anything. We've just sort of put it on pause to when we can film it. We are, you know, we tried a bit of the sort of like, let's do some Corona filming stuff. You know, Alan's Grow Your Own came about and things. I think we tried it a bit, but I don't think we went into it properly. I think the news was enough for us to be depressed about with Corona rather than having to make programs about it, in truth. And I think we found that even previously with the Brexit sort of stuff, you know, it dominates our news and current affairs landscape, that actually, do we need to be doing it as far as factual entertainment and docs? I think probably not. So I think going forward, I think it really has informed exactly where we are, where we're going. I think, you know, it's presented a huge amount of opportunity for factual and doc makers, because next year drama is really going to not deliver. So Q1 is literally over to factual and unscripted, which is amazing for us. And we have hours and hours and hours to fill, and we are looking to the factual communities to deliver on that. Our budgets are looking still pretty good. I think a lot of money has come out of the schedule this year, but it has also been deferred to next year. So I think we're in a good scenario as far as that. I know, you know, obviously as Guy and Danny have both mentioned, you know, we are a commercial, you know, we rely on commercial, the commercial to bring in the money. So we are sort of like nervously watching that, how that situation unfolds, especially next year with the slight doom and gloom of the recession coming. But, you know, as it stands at the moment, we are all systems go, and we are ready to commission, pilot, and we're looking, you know, because we have got so many slots of film, we're looking to commission in volume, which we don't normally do as ITV. You know, it's 3-parters, etc. So there is a lot of opportunity. Thinking about, like, you know, also I'm thinking about back to the last recession that we had, like sort of 10 years ago. And when I think about that time, which was also horrendous for freelancers, I mean, I was 2 years out of work, literally did not work in TV, was almost going to move home to my mum and dad's. It was horrible, but, you know, we came through. I think there's going to be a brilliant new creative renewal. I really honestly do believe that, because I think for so long, for the last few years, I think the whole country has been so divided with all this Brexit stuff, that actually to get a clear sense of perspective that everyone feels the same way about something has been really difficult. And I think that's also been a real challenge to actually land big hits from, you know, starting in that sort of in the factual space. And I think next year we're all going to be in the same sort of scenario. It's going to be a recession, and we're all going to be going, this is shit, and we're all going to be sort of facing the same way that we want out of it all, which in a way for the first time we'll all be on the same page, audiences, and hopefully that will inform us and will give us a brilliant new raft of programs. I mean, I think back to the last one, you know, Bake Off came out of there, Posh Porn, you know, all these shows that felt, you know, like they were back to the heritage of brilliant sort of doc formats and things like that. So I think, you know, actually we should be, you know, really looking at this now, at this moment, as a huge opportunity to go backwards, revisit, you know, territories that we haven't looked at before for a while with a new prism. You know, I think for us at ITV, what we are really interested in general are doc formats. You know, where can we go that we have previously said no to, but actually there's a new reason to go back into. Things like, you know, I mean, I'm thinking like the hotel. Actually, I'm going to switch the clips that we're going to show. It's probably better to, if that's all right, Nigel. And actually, we've got a clip of something where we're heading to soon, which was commissioned by Kate Tetman, and we're back in the Savoy, which is really exciting. They haven't given access for a very long time, and we are back in, and we've got a bit of rig in there, which, you know, for the ITV viewers is brand new. I mean, we don't often do that much rig on ITV, so that's really exciting. That's from Studio Ramsey, and Sam Campbell is directing that. So why don't I show you a clip of that, because I think it really sort of also, we can then talk about tone, about what makes an ITV docs. I think that's something that people really struggle with, but actually there are some very simple rules.
Great.
How about that?
Yeah. Great. So tone. Yes, tone.
Yeah, it's all rip roaring there, isn't it? So look, I think, you know, I think quite often, you know, as documentary makers and Factual, we're not the first port of call, but actually we do quite a lot. And I think, like I said, there's so much more opportunity. But I guess what you have to really understand is about the tone of ITV and who we are. I mean, in truth, we are the tits and teeth channel. I mean, look, I'm practically throwing that out to you already. And so we have to think of it in that way and think about, well, how does that translate to docs, you know? And I think, you know, for something like the Savoy, it's really clear. The Savoy is the celebrity in this, you know what I mean? And I think we wouldn't necessarily go into something smaller or something that doesn't have that name recognition. So the Savoy becomes the celebrity within this. And I think the perspective of the ITV viewer is also very sort of like, it is viewer / consumer facing in that way. Where can the actual viewer go into and feel and touch, and where do they want to go in? So that's why we love the sort of the luxury hotels, or Heathrow does so brilliantly. EasyJet did pretty well for us the first time, well, really well first time around, second time, not so much. But, you know, it's that sort of space where they can actually imagine themselves going. It's very eye level. And I don't think that necessarily means that we want to dumb down our, you know, doc content. It's about sort of like starting with something that feels shiny, tabloid even, and then, you know, packing it full of the sort of more broadsheet content. I don't think we start with a polemic in that way, but there is one in there somewhere. And tone-wise, I think we are, you know, this also has to sit alongside things like, you know, our entertainment or our big dramas. So I think it has to have a little bit of sort of cheek and mischief to it, or pack really big emotion, i.e. that's sort of more Long Lost Families or our Crime and Punishment slate, you know. So I think you have to take your cues from what sits around our factual content, and that is entertainment and drama. What else do I want to talk about? I have got notes, believe it or not. This is the first time I've ever written any. So there's that's that one side of it with our sort of ob docs and institutional access, but we are looking for doc formats, because I think, you know, we need something to sit alongside the Long Lost Families, and I've got 2 piloting at the moment, which we've got high hopes for, that we hope to quite rapidly convert into series if they deliver on their promise. Who knows? So I think we do need to think about doc formats with story churn that actually can become, you know, when you're looking into the void of next year and you're suddenly like, shit, we've got 50 odd hours to fill. You can't necessarily just fill it all with sort of like ob docs and things. You need something that you can just pump through the stories through. I mean, look, things like the 24 Hours and A&E and First Dates are brilliant examples of the story machines that you can actually create in the real world. But I think the key for us is, you know, authenticity. I think there's got to be a very sort of, like I said, eye level to a viewer. Lastly, I just want to show you a clip of something that is also coming down the line, which is an amazing doc with Sheridan Smith over the time of her having her baby, done by Brian Wood. And I think that's the other sort of piece in our sort of doc and factual puzzle, is the sort of big one-off docs. And I think we have we have sometimes trouble actually getting attention to these docs, so they have to really announce themselves. And I think something like this with Sheridan is a brilliant example where you take a big star that is, part of the cultural media landscape in a quite often a tabloid way, but there is actually a real story to be told there that in the hands of someone like Brian will come to the fore. Mental health issues, the actual price of fame, if you like, as well within it. And I think that's how we do it on ITV. So let me just show you the clip, and you can just hopefully fawn over it, because I loved your clip, by the way, Claire. Hi, I thought it was amazing. I'm just so in for it.
When's that coming out?
I think it will be later this year. Jo Clinton-Davies commissioned that. So actually, she probably has all the details. Sorry, I should have got a few more details, didn't I? But it is going to be later this year, I think, because she has having her baby. So, yeah. Near it at the moment. So, yeah, that's a little sneak. And probably Jo told me to caveat that it is a rough cut. So, you know, but, you know, it still looks good to me.
Well, I think your points about creative renewal and opportunity, you know, I think your reference back to the last economic crisis is definitely something for people to think about in terms of the work that's came out of that, and what, you know, at the moment it feels daunting, but actually great, hopefully will come out of this period.
I totally think so. I mean, you look, Bake Off came out of, you know, post that. It was the antidote of joy that everybody wanted, the simplicity and the joy. And that is a mega hit. Like, you know, that has now, you know, not only made Love into a giant production company and made them lots of money, but it's gone across the world and brought the money back. So we really should, you know, look at this in a way that is, well, how do we retell? Because we, you know, essentially, you know, look, I love to think of myself as a really hardcore doc maker, but I'm really not. I'm a bit trashy. I don't mind saying it. But, you know, I think we are retelling this, you know, human stories over and over again against a different backdrop every time. And those fundamentals are always there, you know, of joy, love, whatever it might be. The backdrop changes. And, you know, in a weird way, we have got now next year a backdrop that we've seen before. So we already have some sort of blueprint from last time that we can sort of riff off, you know. And it will be down to the documentary makers that will provide us with those sparks that will I think ignite something that actually speaks to the nation next year or now, how it changes. So I think, you know, as far as, you know, anybody else, and I think it's also really important because I think, you know, it's something the SVODs, where we're all in a scenario where we're, you know, literally fighting for our lives against the SVODs, don't do. They do not sort of fundamentally, I don't think any of their content really speaks to now and how the mood of a nation, because they need their content just to sit there for years on end to people to watch. So you can't really necessarily speak to the mood of a nation, whereas actually as linear broadcasters we are really well positioned, and it actually is something that we should be driving harder in order to differentiate ourselves from the SVODs. So I think, you know, in one respect, I think, you know, this is a really shitty time and there's no getting around it, but actually I think there's going to be a real boon, especially for factual makers, and if you just hold on a tiny bit longer, we will get there. God willing, I mean, or whoever willing, you know, whatever you decide, you know. And then the last thing you want to talk about is diversity and inclusion, don't you?
Yep.
Is that right?
Yeah.
So, well, look, I mean, I think there's so much has been spoken about it before. I think the real thing that I think, you know, and everybody's launched their own manifestos, initiatives, etc., and we're announcing ours today. But I think there's only really one thing that really needs to be said about the thing that we really need to think about. And I think we've had this conversation over and over again, years go past, we have it again, and it seems like nothing changes. I think the real thing is we all have to take individual responsibility now. We all have to do this, and we all have to find ways of being accountable and transparent about how we do it. And I think, you know, it starts by literally sitting in your office. And I mean, look, if we were at Sheffield now, we had the whole, everyone sitting in front of us. Look to your left and right. What do you see? And if you see literally all the same people that look like you, and you don't see what you see walking down the street, you know there's a problem. And actually, if you're in the room talking about it, you know you have the ability to change it. But it's incumbent on all of us at all levels. It's incumbent on the channels. It's incumbent on production companies. And we all have to, we can't go now, I think, oh, well, it's the production companies have to do this and we're not going to help. Or the productions can't say to channels, oh, well, actually, if you want us to do that, you have to do that. You have to give us more money. We all have to do this, and we all have to make a change. And I'm now just sort of on a soapbox, aren't I? But I think that is the fundamental truth of it all. And I think, you know, I think what Ben and Guy had done at Channel 5 is amazing example of actually creating business opportunities. And I think, you know what, there is a business case for creative diversity in it's our lifeblood, and we need it to work, and we can't stop until it's done. Sorry, that's so general. It's so not even what our plan is, isn't it? I haven't even told you anything about what ITV are doing. But you know, our plan does come out today, and what we're focusing on is accelerating diversity and inclusion. I think we do it as within our world, but I don't think we're doing enough. You know, so I think what our plan is to try and see how we accelerate across all levels and across all parts of our business. You know, I mean, we're really fortunate that we already have sort of 23% BAME commissioning editors, and 20% of our heads of department are BAME. But you know, there is so much more we can do, and we have to be targeted, and we have to put out there, we have to measure, and we have to be accountable. And if we're not doing well enough, we go back to the drawing board and we carry on going until it's done. Sorry, that's it.
That music came in at the right time. No, great. Okay, so we've sort of overrun, obviously, because we wanted to get everything in. There's a couple of questions which I think we can probably answer online and give people information on. I don't know if there's anybody who wants to desperately say something before we wrap up, but
Can I answer the question about the shooters course?
Yeah.
It's called An Intro to Shooting Docs.
Thank you.
And you'll find it on the NFPS website.
And the question was, what is the name of the
shooting course?
Right.
I was going to
talk. Can I just say one thing, which Ben and I were talking about? It's about the diversity things, and it was like, diversity comes with the commission, right? That's as simple as it gets. That's all we're saying. You know, I think that's what it is about. Diversity comes with the commission. So that's what we're saying to everybody, and it's kind of simple when you say it that way.
I think it's so interesting that you said that, Guy, and what you're saying, Sat, as well. And my view on it is that you know, I'm really proud in my department, the Factual department, we've got more than 50% actually across the board of black and brown commissioning editors and so on. But it's still, what I've really realised, having somebody like Fatima, who's an incredibly senior commissioning editor, and then commissioning editors like Fozia and Rita and Haji, I've only realised, and it sounds so unbelievably obvious what I'm about to say, when you have those people in the room really challenging your ideas that come in, and what you think you should be commissioning, what you're about to maybe even press go on, and actually those people, when you give them a proper voice, I can't even believe I'm saying this, but it's so true, that when they have more power and there's more diversity within that group of people who are decision makers in channels, it's literally changed. In the 2 years I've been there, having those people in my team, it is now changing the things we commission and the people we use to front programs. And that is literally the only, it would not have happened had it would have been, we'd have had more white, middle class, Oxbridge educated people within our department. It just wouldn't have happened. And I can't believe I'm stating that as obvious as that. And I have not even realised how important it is to have such a selection of people from very, very different backgrounds, of socioeconomic backgrounds as well as diverse, as ethnically diverse. It sounds so obvious, right? But it's just unbelievable.
It totally does. But I mean, I think it's, you know, there is an imperative for us to connect with our audiences. All of us as PSBs, we've got to connect with our audiences. Yeah. I think, you know, we're losing out to SVODs who are able to, you know, super serve everybody's, you know, individual sort of needs or within their sort of like massive catalogues of shows that are there. And I think, you know, we've got to find a way of connecting with them. And if we're all sort of homogenized at the top, we're not representing. And that's not, but I think, you know, it's commissioners, but it's also, you know, the ideas that come into us. Are you getting ideas? Are we getting ideas in from companies that are all the same, look at the same top? We're going to get the same ideas in from them. They're not they're not going to be able to give us a diversity of ideas. We all struggle to find great ideas as commissioners. Let's face it. I mean, look, I mean, it's really, and we have to stand out from the crowd. And actually, you know, well, companies need to also then invest as well, because they're not going to be able to deliver the quality of ideas. And it's just, you know, I mean, I think there's so much data out there about, especially in creative industries, the more diverse your organization is, the more successful you are in a commercial sense, you know. And so that means pumping out those ideas, getting those commissions and everything. So I think, you know, it's up to, I guess it's, you know, look, I mean, no one can be forced to be
as the Indian in the room, then when we put forward talent, you have to take the risk with us, because we're putting forward people we believe in.
That's sometimes harder, you're right.
I think we should never, first of all, we should, look, I'm going to correct you. I think we have to reframe, we have a massive reframing into the word risk to do it, because I think it is generally associated with BAME, and it's an opportunity for someone. And I think we actually never should refer to it as a risk. You know, whether that's on screen, off screen, or whatever. It's an opportunity that would have been afforded to someone who perhaps was equally matched, that was not BAME. But I think you're right. I think the thing is incumbent on all of us. You know what I mean? I think we all have to create opportunities. I don't think representation now is enough. It's about creating opportunities.
Can I just echo what you're saying about decision makers? Like, that is the end game. That is the most important thing. But I'm just aware that I haven't mentioned the BBC's 20%, you know, from April 21st, 20% of all commissions across network have to have diverse behind the scenes production teams, and it's going to be audited. So that's not about junior members of production teams, that's right through the production team. And that like, we're not waiting till April 21 for that. Like, anyone who's pitching ideas to us now, that's what we're talking about.
And we're
how will you then
Could I just say one more thing about docs? I personally, what I feel that I have a lot to learn about this and a lot more listening to do. But what I would say is I'm obsessed with story, and I haven't been asking myself often enough, who is telling that story?
Yeah, I think, look, I mean, I don't think anybody, I think we have to learn about everything we've done. Look, I mean, I work for a very broad commercial channel, and actually the way we, you know, tackle diversity issues is not necessarily by doing programs that are specific for diverse audiences, but we try and incorporate diversity within everything that we do, which sometimes doesn't necessarily resonate with diverse audience on screen. So it makes our channel look quite homogenized in one sort of way. But, you know, it is there, but I mean, it's not about sort of trying to go, I guess what we don't want to fall into is that, yeah, but culture, yeah, but we do have that, or yeah, but we have that, or we've done that. I think that's where it sort of lends. But I think this time around, it feels definitely that there is a proper will to change things.
Yeah.
We're hopefully using all of our returning brands to try and unlock a frozen middle and step people up on a series. So in 12 months' time, we can actually fundamentally say we have actually raised up, you know, APs to PDs or whatever, so that we can actually say we're moving people into more senior editorial roles within and using whatever tools we have, i.e. our returning brands, which are great training grounds, I think, to do that. And I think, to your point, Alex, going back to point, we have to just make the leap, and that's what I suppose is, you know, it's incumbent on all of us, I guess. And, you know, ITV is, you know, not excluded from that.
It might mean more time in edits. It might mean more time that budget, you know, it just.
Well, it might mean that the budget is spent slightly differently, mightn't it? We have to hold hands with indies to make that happen.
I think we
broadcasters have to hold hands with you.
I think half the time is just investing time. And actually, I don't think necessarily sometimes, look, this is my own personal experience on this. I don't think sometimes it's about actually going, oh, right, we've just given a new shooter their first sort of, you know, half hour or hour to PD and cut. I don't think it's necessarily that they need an extra 2 weeks in the edit or not. They just need a bit of investment in time and how they should, this opportunity is going to work for them. You know, I don't think necessarily when we gave, you know, non-BAME PDs their first sort of like credit, they got extra time in the edit. It's not like they just had a supportive exec that actually took time to actually go, right, this is what you need to do. This is how we're going to do it. And don't worry, we're right behind you. That's all it was. So
but they also, they also need to see more people like them in very senior positions, right, as well. So the thing that I found really hard coming from a background that was very, very working class is I was incredibly intimidated 20 years ago when I joined the BBC, because 20 years ago, the BBC, there was literally, it was Oxbridge, full of Oxbridge-educated people, nothing against those people, but it was literally that everyone around me was, and I found that incredibly intimidating. I mean, obviously, I'm sort of done all right now, but it takes you a while to build confidence. And if you don't see other people in roles above you or alongside you where you're inspired by them, that is a problem. That's definitely a problem. So more senior role, more people from BME backgrounds in senior roles, there's also got to be a thing who are the decision makers as well. I think we all, particularly in documentary, I think we all rely on the fact that we're really all incredibly broad-minded and open-minded, and we think we're really liberal. And think, look, we're open to everything, all ideas. But the truth is, you're sort of not in the end. That's the problem. You sort of tend to go for the stories that you know and you think is going to get the audience of the people that sort of are like-minded like you. So we need to. That's the thing that needs to change. The decision makers in the room, I think, really is a massive thing that I feel deeply passionate about.
I guess I'm on the other side of this, but actually, when I look at who comes to pitch to me, I rarely see a BAME face, and I'm the only one in the room that's BAME, which is sort of a really weird change from when I used to go in and pitch to channels, and I used to see, I was still the only BAME person in the room, but it's still, I don't look, and there is not a one size fits all version of this. I think, ultimately for, getting companies up and running that are led by BMAs, I think what Channel 5 has done an amazing job. I think hopefully what we will do is hopefully be able to, in 12 months, flood the marketplace with brilliant, senior editorial BAME production staff who are on the path then to be the next generation of series producers, execs, etc. And then we'll become the business owners. But we also have to do grassroots. It cannot be a situation where we're doing it's one or the other, and they don't necessarily preclude each other or cancel each other out, I guess.
Totally.
But the time is now, I guess. But I mean, we thought that 5 years ago when it was also the time is now, and so
I think you're right. You're totally right about that. I think this time it feels different. I think this time it feels different. I think there is it's unbelievable that in many ways a huge catalyst has been the death of a man in America who's, on the police. And you think, Jesus Christ, you can't believe that's been the catalyst really for a lot of this. I know Channel 5, you've been doing stuff before, and actually so have all of us. Actually, it's really ramped up this conversation about what the fuck are we all going to do properly in this to respond to this and actually get a much wider variety of voices making films, being the decision makers. It's totally ramped up across all the channels. We're all saying the same thing. So, but I think we all mean it this time. I really do. And it's incumbent on us to make change. Yeah,
I think it's also, in a combination to the horrific, George Floyd situation, the horrific thing, it's also, what coronavirus has also actually exposed deep sort of like social and the burden of social inequality disproportionately affects BAME people in the UK, and those with disability, and I think that's really exposed that. And actually, I suppose going back to our freelance point that we talked about earlier, what I'm really worried about is actually quite a lot of the good work that has been done will come undone in this moment, because are the sort of like the young black directors or minority directors who are just starting out going to be able to ride this tide through? I don't know. What burdens are they going to face that are different from, say, for example, someone who's white middle class or something like that? And I think it's a really complicated issue, but I think like I said, I think what we should all be turning to each other and going, how do we make this work, and start from there and just do it, I guess.
Great.
Well, we'll come back next year this time, and hopefully we'll be able to say that we did some of these things.
Yeah, no spin, just actual facts.
Hold us accountable.
Yeah.
Yeah, have I signed up to something that actually I'm going to get told off for? I've probably I've written checks my ass can't cash now, and I'm going to be spanked when I get back.
We'll get a lot of freelance people writing to you, I think, after this.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, everybody, for time today. Really
welcome.
appreciated, and thank you to the filmmakers for sharing the clips with us. We recognise they're not finished pieces of work, so we really appreciate that. And there's a few questions that we'll answer online, I think, because the conversation went elsewhere. But thank you very, very much.
Thank you all. Thank you, Alex.
Thanks.